California forcing its bad energy policies on the rest of the United States. Next on the Energy News Beat Daily Stand-Up.
Stargate Advances with 4.5 gigawatt partnership with Oracle. This is an important story, especially for Abilene, Texas. And in our article that we have here, you can see Stargate's picture right there. I have driven by that location several times. It is amazing. This collaboration, revealed in July 2025, pushes the total Stargate capacity under development to over 5 gigawatts, capable of supporting more than 2 million AI chips. Michael, that is a lot for me. That's a bunch. Can you imagine how many news stories we could run on 2 million AI chips? But OpenAI's Stargate initiative represents a bold vision for AI infrastructure, and how they're getting there, Michael, is a stepped in process. They're going to invest $50 billion in 10 gigawatts of AI data centers around the U.S. over the next 4 years. But in Abilene, Texas, they're starting out with used jet engines as natural gas turbines to get them started. And then they're going to leave those in place. And then they're going to go through and step this in and use those for backup power. AI alone could add 35 to 108 gigawatt load capacity by 2030. Michael, the stories we've been running in the last 2 weeks, the numbers don't add up. There's only 22 gigawatts of nuclear and natural gas ready for the grid. What does that mean? I went and got my crayon calculator here from Oklahoma State. It comes in a Cracker Jack box. And so you get this decoder ring for gigawatt capacity, and then we're short a lot. This is unbelievable.
No, it really is unbelievable. And I think you hit the nail on the head with this article and your analysis of the math isn't math, from the standpoint of you have all of this new generation that's going to be needed in terms of not just what's going on with Stargate, but what's going on with AI development all around the country. And now you look at what we're taking offline. We're retiring natural gas plants in California. We can't get any facilities from a nuclear standpoint actually developed. So we're going to end up in this situation where basically going in opposite directions from what we need from a generation standpoint to what we actually have available. And it's going to drive us to coal. I mean, I think me and you can both agree that, Trump, when he talks about clean coal, he's just being funny. I mean, coal itself is not the cleanest form of energy. One of the reasons why the world's carbon emissions have gone down over the last 300 years is because we moved from burning wood to using coal to now using natural gas. Natural gas is the cleanest form of energy. We have an abundant source of it. And so what's going to happen is we're going to drive this country back to coal, which doesn't make anybody better off.
No, and clean coal is a decent term, because if you're removing, and I think what you're going to see, and that brings up several new articles that I'm working on, and that is the definition of pollution. We need to define what pollution is. It's not what is, it's what is pollution. And CO2 is not pollution. It's the particulate matters in the coal exhaust that is bad, not the CO2.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next story, Michael. Michael, you can't beat a good old Governor Newsom hair gel story. California oversteps its borders, forcing energy policies on the rest of the United States. I absolutely would love not to interview Gavin Newsom. Unpacking the Senate Bill 253, the Climate Corporate Data Accountability Act, SB 253, stands as a nation's first mandatory climate emissions disclosure rule, compelling large businesses to report their greenhouse gases emission under the 3 scopes. Scopes 1, direct greenhouse gas emissions from owned or controlled. Scope 2, indirect from purchased energy, such as electricity or heating. Scope 3, all other emissions in the value chain. How in blankety blank are you going to be able to do any of that? And all this is a horrible burden on people trying to gain information from your supply chains all the way through your supply chain that they don't have the technical capabilities of doing. And then the penalties. Holy smokes, Batman. This is a revenue for, it's one thing to have billions of dollars for a light rail speed system that you cannot even get one track laid for, and you're looking for a way to fund it. I think we found the way that they're trying to fund their light rail system.
Well, I also think the hard part with all of this, Stu, is in good faith, I can say, sure, maybe you should be reporting your scope 1 emissions. I'm not going to die on the scope 1 emissions hill. The scope 2 emissions, it's hard to, I might die on that hill. I promise you the hill I'll die on is scope 3 emissions, because the definition of scope 3 emissions is basically anything that's associated with you. I mean, the old phrase, 7 steps away from Kevin Bacon. Well, everybody is 7 steps away from some sort of extremely harmful thing. I mean, if you took a hot shower this morning or any type of shower this morning, you've participated in scope 3 emissions. If you jumped in a car today, the fact that you're listening to this show via YouTube or podcast means you're participating in scope 3 emissions. So now what are we going to do? I mean, I think this gets really wonky for companies that even aren't in the energy business who now have to start caring. I mean, should OpenAI have to start reporting its scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions? No, this is specifically for attempting to do this for energy companies. I know what they've said is that it's, annual revenues exceeding $1 billion. Well, guess what that does? That eliminates a lot of companies that fall under that threshold. You don't think they picked that $1 billion mark strategically? Yeah, because they want to filter out and only want to go and target oil and gas companies. I hate scope 3 emissions, or this idea that we need to care about scope 3 emissions. It's hard for an individual company to care about that, and they've tried to say, well, guess what? Though scope, there's a penalty for non-compliance, which is about $500,000 per year. I mean, not that much. If you're $1 billion revenue a year company, you should be able to afford $500,000. Scope 3 emission errors, though, that are made in good faith are somewhat forgivable by 2030. But you also mentioned this in your articles too. Beyond the fines, the real burden lies in the operational costs, building cross-functional teams across finance, legal, and operations, third-party verifiers, navigating and that can navigate that collection for scope 3. And the real question is the accuracy is a major hurdle. This is a very interesting quote. You say scope 3 data is notoriously imprecise, prone to double counting or gaps, leading to potential misstatements that could invite lawsuits and reputational damage. As one analyst notes, these requirements create, quote, convoluted filing requirements that amount to little more than make work. I love that quote.
It is absolutely despicable. And when you sit back and take a look at Senate Bill 253 and Senate Bill 261, they exemplify state level overreach, imposing burden-em, error-prone reporting. And I mean, this is absolutely despicable. Michael, how this ties into the UK, Canada, and the EU is critical, because they are looking to Gavin Newsom to tie the United States to their standards. And that's the back door that they're looking for. So This is actually a global push by the global elites trying to force the United States into this bull hockey.
Yeah, pretty unbelievable. All right, let's move to the next one.
I like this story. Way to go, Poland. Poland announced the largest ever oil discovery in Polish territory. Energy security starts at home, and I am happy for these guys. The discovery was made by the Central European Petroleum, CEP, a key player in the regional exploration in the Woolen East BE1 well. And they look at tons of oil rather than barrels. So 22 million tons of oil is actually 161.26 million barrels. I had to get my crayon out to figure that out. And 5 billion cubic meters BCM of gas. That's a lot, dude, just in that one well.
Yeah, it's
they need this.
No, they really do need this. I mean, Poland is one of those countries that has very little domestic energy production. If there's anything that we've pounded on this show, it's that domestic energy production for any country is directly tied with energy security. This is going to be great for them, and we're happy for them. It is offshore, so it's going to make it a little bit more challenging to get, but really, really great for them.
Oh yeah, and but the Ukrainian SEALs are very talented in that part of the world. That's a joke for people in the show. If this is the next story, if Alberta referendum become the 51st state gains traction, what would financial reality look like? Michael, I had a blast writing this one. In the heart of Canada's oil country, a new idea is simmering. What if Alberta, the powerhouse of North American energy production, held a referendum to secede from Canada and join the United States as a 51st state? We'd all go, yay! I think it would be fabulous. I know a couple great Canadians up there that I'd go see in a heartbeat. While this remains hypothetical, it's gaining traction. They are hacked. They are tired of it. Let's go through some of these numbers, Michael. They have been giving, listen to this, crude oil production is 43 million barrels per day of crude oil production. Oil sands is 3.4 million barrels. And when you take a look at natural gas, has an average of 10.9 billion cubic feet per day. Advantages for Alberta is that they would gain military protection. Disadvantage for Canada is that they would lose a gigantic revenue stream. That gigantic revenue stream is phenomenal. However, it would unleash the oil sands coming to the United States. And I think that they would make more money because there would no longer be a price differential that we would be able to beat them down on.
I agree. I mean, I think in theory this would be awesome. I'd love nothing more than welcome Alberta to the as part of the United States. Do I think it's actually going to happen? No, I don't think it's going to happen. Much like I don't think Texas will end up seceding from the Union, as every 3 years that pops up around here. So I think the politics are a lot more complicated than just this idea that, oh, it'll be an easy fit. I mean, if you're California, you're not, or if you're Canada, you're not going to let this go. If would the United States even welcome Alberta? I mean, I think me and you would welcome them tremendously. The question is, would Congress? I mean, we know Trump would, but this isn't just something that, a president can do unilaterally. So the question is, would Congress vote on this? How would this actually look? I think the unknowns right now outweigh the knowns. And if, from an asset management standpoint, whenever you get a trade like that, I pass on it, because if what I know is less than what I don't know, well, what I don't know then can harm me way more than what I know. So I think you're absolutely spot on. From, we would love to have the revenue, we would love to have the oil and gas production. You're spot on when you talk about the differentials are great, but I think in reality this is much tougher than it sounds, and I don't know from a politics standpoint whether or not it would be worth it. I mean, I think the military protection is the least of our concerns. I don't think Canada on their Canada I don't think is going to march in on horseback anytime soon and try to take it back if they decide to do that. I mean that with all due respect to the Royal Mounted Police. I don't think from a military perspective I'd be all that concerned. I'm more concerned about what's the fallout between these two countries. We do know, as you point out here in your bottom line, that Canada is pushing closer to EU and the UK, continuing to adopt these net zero policies. So if the only reason Alberta is looking to move is because of energy, I mean, obviously we would take it. I go ahead and think back to the concept of, would the politics work? I'm not sure if it would.
No, the odds are low, but on the other hand, they now have the referendum and is now becoming a legal issue. So it is now no longer a conspiracy theory. The referendum has got enough signatures. So it's now going to go to the voter of the people. That turns it to a whole new set. Let's go to the next one. Europe's chemical and downstream industry seeks a lifeboat to stay in business, and heading to the United States thanks to Gavin Newsom's energy policies, like we covered. This is a follow-along story. The weight of net zero regulations on Europeans' chemical sector is abysmal. The sector responsible for about 5% of global CO2 emissions must navigate a web of policies aimed at slashing greenhouse gases while maintaining competitiveness. The fees and everything that we talked about, just absolutely, here we are with scope 3 emissions, and they're talking about all this. All of this crap is being forced in with California, the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. And if Chris Wright and his team don't get proposed legislation into law, we are going to have to fight to have our oil companies not paying all this extra money to try to do business with the European Union. It is absolutely pathetic what they're doing.
No, absolutely. I mean, I don't need to pound the fist on Scope 3 emissions, but they're absolutely, in my opinion, unbelievable. I think this part that you talk about later in the article, which was ripple effects on U.S. manufacturers and oil companies, there is a trickle-down effect that does affect specifically the big international players who have to now comply with multiple different laws, both in the United States and in the EU. You know, it also is pretty crazy to think that our favorite organization, the IEA, they warn that net zero transitions demand a 50% drop in oil and gas emissions intensity by 2050, which does require about $600 billion of investments, which, to be honest, is probably light, in my opinion. You go on to talk about all the Scope 3 emissions, which we don't need to dive into. I think it's unbelievable. But I mean, the world's gone crazy. This goes along with that great Substack article you wrote this morning on how large oil and gas companies are having to basically navigate and fleeing this net zero business. I mean, it's really unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. And when you sit back and take a look, energy giants abandon global net zero group over oil and gas clampdown. This is pretty funny when you got Shell, Norway's Aker BP, and Canada's Enbridge are now exiting that group. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. It really is. So, well, all right, guys, let's jump over and cover some oil and gas finance. Before we do that, let's quickly pay the bills. As always, all the news and analysis is brought to you by EnergyNewsBeat.com. Hit the links in the description below for all timestamps, all links to the articles. You can also subscribe to us on Substack, a great place to, one, support the show, but also stay up to speed and get daily insights into your inbox every single morning. Stu does a great job of writing a bunch of content there. I'm rolling out a bunch of content that via our research tab, so highly recommend subscribing there. Also like to shout out Reese Energy Consulting for supporting the show, guys. We love Reese Energy Consulting because we know they do good work. If you are at all attached to the midstream space, whether you're an upstream company who needs help negotiating first purchaser contracts or putting together negotiations as you're looking to tie into a pipeline and decisions to make around that, Reese Energy Consulting has your back. If you're in the midstream space, they have a variety of services that can help augment your current team. Their clients range from anywhere from 2 guys sitting in a garage all the way up to the largest publicly traded companies in the world. So if you're wondering, are they a fit for you? The answer is yes. That's ReeseEnergyConsulting.com. We love all of them over there. And finally, guys, check us out, investinoil.energynewsbeat.com, to fill out our oil and gas portfolio survey. If you are interested in investing in oil and gas and don't know where to begin, don't know what questions to ask, go ahead and fill out that survey. We're going to send you a bunch of information, and then we will, depending on how you respond, we will point you in the right direction. Investinoil.energynewsbeat.com. Stu, when we look at top line indices, S&P 500 pretty flat today. NASDAQ was down about 0.5 percentage point. 2 and 10-year yields down about 1%. Individually, dollar index drops another 0.4 percentage point. Bitcoin up about 1.8 percentage points, all the way above $119,000. Crude oil took another swing to the downside today, down 1.3 percentage points, all the way down to 65.06, dancing around that number. Brent oil down about a little bit less, down about 0.5 percentage point, down to 68.33. Natural gas down another 2.3 percentage points, down to $3.24. Ironically, our E&P securities contract XOP was actually up 1.3 percentage points. OWAC, which are oil field services, was up 2.3 percentage points. So a little interesting bifurcation there. Really, the main reason we saw prices fall today was this concern that any trade deal between the U.S. and the EU might not happen. The renewed fears that it might not happen. We saw some stuff come out on Truth Social from President Trump that basically kind of stunted what people thought was some positive movement towards a potential deal. But if there is any new extra tariffs, or the thought is that we will see some economic slowdown there. He's basically threatened a 30% tariff on EU if there's the August 1 deadline is not hit, which is going to be pretty interesting. We also saw that the interim trade deal that we have with India has also dimmed, and that's according to multiple Indian government sources. So it doesn't look like there. We love our Indian brothers, and it's just going to be very interesting to see what happens there. We also did see diesel prices drop in terms of pricing there. We saw the ultra low sulfur diesel future, which is really the stuff that's used in trucking, dropped by 3% down to 102 barrel, which is probably good for the economy standpoint, to be honest with you, but shows some weakness generating in the oil markets. we'll have the crude oil inventory, or, as you listen to this, you'll see the EIA crude oil inventory numbers. It looks like there'll be about a draw of 600,000 barrels. That's according to a poll of analysts that's done. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But other than that, Stu, really light news day, not much on the market. I think everyone's gearing up for earnings. It's about to be a busy earnings season. I think, people are still kind of in this wait and see mode with oil prices. Well, with that, we're going to let you get out of here, get back to work, start your Wednesday. Appreciate you guys checking us out here on the world's greatest podcast and daily news show, Energy Newsbeat Daily. Stand up for Stuart Turley and Michael Tanner. We'll see you tomorrow.